Now we're
There we go.
live.
Live. Okay, I can see us. I usually put it on my
Oh yeah.
laptop so that I can see what people are saying
Yeah,
and
that's what
doing.
I was about to do that too. I was like, um oh, I guess
I
I
know
have to go to my
if I do it on my
website
phone,
to
I look
do it.
like this. This is me trying to do comments on my phone. It looks like I'm driving or something, so I won't do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. Trying to look at comments on your phone is just like
Yeah,
almost
it's hard.
impossible because it's just like
Yeah.
scrolling by so fast.
Yes.
Well, anyway, hello everybody.
Hi.
I'm
Hi.
Brandon Ellrich. My publication is Brandon Ellrich is So Gay. And this
Rolls off the
evening,
tongue.
I know, I know. I was trying to think of something of a name for my publication, and I came up with that. And a few
Yeah.
other people told me, "Oh, that's really funny," you know. So I
Yeah,
was
it's
like,
good. It works.
yeah."
I ran into a
And
guy named whose publication on Substack is The Gay Buffet, and he's great too.
yes, I know him.
You know him?
Aiden.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I've talked
Substack
to
though.
him and interacted with him. We did a
Like a live.
collaboration article, and then
Oh, nice.
we were on together with Lawrence Winterman on the Daily
Okay.
Whatever.
How did I not know that? The reason I know who he is I went to the Substack meet and greet and I saw on his name tag that it said the Gay Buffet and I was just
Oh,
like, I need to introduce
yeah.
myself because that's a really great name. And so that's how I met him. And so now
Oh,
I follow
yeah.
him because of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's
Basically, I
fun.
just I read one of his articles and reached out
Hmm.
to him, and he said, "Yeah, we can do a
Yeah,
collaboration."
he's
So
nice. He's really nice.
yeah, it was really fun. We got together on Coming Out Day
Okay.
in October. So
Got it.
um, anyway, um, so nice to meet you. I did. We kind of skipped that part because
Yeah.
I've seen several live videos of yours, and I know I've seen you come into like a few of my cooking ones and stuff. But
Yeah, yeah. And I think we were on one with Wendy. Like I hopped on one way back in the day when you were on for
oh,
2 minutes and it was so long that it feels like another time. But yeah, yeah, I know who you are for sure.
okay, yeah, well, yeah, and
You know.
I knew you did because I've seen you come into the audience in the chat and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but anyway, yeah, I'd forgotten. I guess I forgot about you being on with Wendy one time. Yeah, like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
said,
yeah.
it's been forever ago.
It does. Substack moves fast.
Yeah. So
Hi.
anyway, here we are, and
Hi.
a little while back, I saw the death of a Mayfly. I guess it was in my feed
Mhm.
or something, and I was in the reading mode or whatever, and it was like I think it was like chapter 7 or something like that,
Yeah.
and it was kind of stupid of me to just start in the middle of the chapter, but
Whatever.
I was like, oh, I'll try it out and see what this is
Uh-huh.
like, and so got on there and read it, and I really liked it. It really pulled me in, and
Thank you.
I left a comment, and you wrote back and said, "Well, you should go back and read chapter 1 because
It'll make
Walter."
more sense.
Yeah, well, that too. And you were saying Walter did the narration for it. Well,
Yes.
is it Rain or Ryan? I
Rain.
always get it
I
wrong.
always call him Walter Rain,
Rain.
but I don't think we've ever actually. I've never, or I didn't pay attention, and I should pay better attention. But I always said Walter Rain, but I don't think I've heard him say it before. So I'll have to ask. That's a great question.
Yeah, I keep forgetting about it, and I was like, I've interacted with him several times, and I
Hmm.
should know his name, but
No. Well, we never
I don't know.
introduce
Names
each
are
other by last names. I mean, how often do we do
Yeah,
that?
that's true. I mean, when we say Walter, pretty much most
He's
people know what
Walter.
we're talking about, right?
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
Walter. And it's really, I have to say, it's been really great because I didn't think anybody wants to narrate my story. Like I've spent a couple of years with nobody reading anything that I wrote, and that was the
Oh,
main thing
yeah.
that I wrote. And so the idea that somebody wanted to narrate it and make like an audiobook version, at first I thought, I wonder if it works in a male's voice because it's a very,
Oh,
woman-centric
yeah.
story, right? It's about
Right,
it's
right.
about a lot of like these issues that women have faced for a lot of centuries and I was like, I wonder if that works. And it totally does. And I don't know why it does so well, but he has a really good just storybook quality. But it also is a little bit unemotional. And I think just listening to the story without
Okay.
specific emotions that I've added in my head,
Yeah.
from a different point of view, I was like, "Oh, this is really enlightening. It didn't even feel like my own book. I felt like I was listening to somebody else's story, which is really, it's kind of cool when it's
Yeah, that
kind of
is
great.
cool.
Yeah.
So it's a little more objective, I guess, with him reading
Yeah,
it.
for sure. For sure.
Well, that's cool. I've read several of his articles, and
Mhm.
usually I'll listen to. I like listening to the articles. I'm really glad you have the voiceover option. Whether it's, I mean, the AI.
Yeah.
I'll take the AI over nothing. But I do
Yeah.
like Walter's
Yes.
version of it, and I like when people read their own. And
Yeah.
I do mine. I try to at least. I usually a lot of
Right.
times I'll forget, and after I've already published it, I'll be, oh, I forgot you to do the voiceover. And I'll go
Yeah.
back
I've
in
never
and
even
edit it
thought
and
about
add the voiceover.
I've not thought about doing that. That's an interesting idea. Because I feel like when I write articles, I'm just like, this is somebody else's information. This is not my information. But that's a good thought. Maybe I'll think about doing that sometime.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people just like to listen. I've like when I'm especially when I'm listening to an audiobook
Mhm.
or something, when I'm reading your chapters, I'll be, you know, doing
Right.
stuff around the house or whatever, and I can because when I'm cleaning or whatnot,
Right.
it doesn't take a lot of concentration, so I can
For
actually
sure. Yeah,
listen
yeah.
to what's going on in the
Well,
book.
and if you use the AI version, they're always like quotation mark closed. And you're
Yes,
just like,
yes,
that's not really necessary. I
yeah.
don't know when people would actually need that in an audio. Like maybe we just take that out altogether. I don't know. It feels
Yeah,
unnecessary.
there was or a couple of your chapters that had like lines in it, and it
Yes.
was saying underscore 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 underscore. I'm like, okay, so I had to I had to
Sorry.
do this a skip
That's
30
so
second
funny.
skip ahead. I was
Because it's
like, all
supposed to
right,
be
all
like,
right.
there's points in the book that are supposed to be like she has writer's block. She's gone through this like traumatic thing, and so she has writer's block as a result. And the way I had it written out in Microsoft Word was like I would just have the date and it would be like empty lines, like it was in her journal or something. And then when I got on,
Oh, right. Okay.
when I was like translating that into a Substack post, was like, oh, they don't have that option. Underscore underscore underscore. I mean, that's the only
Right,
way to do
right.
it. And I was like, oh, I guess that works. I don't know.
Well, the AI is literally transcribing that.
It's so funny.
Yeah. So going back to the origins, what inspired you to write it in the first place?
Well, so it's about a little town called Fort Benton, which is in Montana, and this is my dad's hometown. And so it's where my
Okay.
grandparents lived and my aunts and uncles lived. And so I didn't grow up there like living there, but I was there for all my summer vacations and go there for Christmas and like take the train in the wintertime. It was a place that really informed who I became. And it's very, I mean, it feels very literary when you go there. It's very run down. There are roads that are still unpaved. There's one street light that clicks when it's at night and nobody's downtown. You can hear it clicking on and off and on and off.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's just very. And then I grew up knowing a lot of, I guess, like the gossip or whatever. But there's really dark secrets in a small town. Like there's bad stuff that happens and then nobody talks about it. Like everybody knows, but
Right,
nobody talks about it. So it
right.
just feels kind of primed for storytelling. And like a lot of people, I had a random dream at one point years and years and years ago where it was in Fort Benton and they have these three sets of railroad tracks and the trains don't come through anymore, but they have these three tracks. And it was just this imagery of like getting to the tracks and not be able, like physically not being able to cross them. Like you can't leave. You're stuck in a small town, but you physically cannot cross these tracks. And I just like woke up in that scenario just kind of kept playing and playing in my head. And I was like, I really want to build a story about that, like where somebody's in this small town and they physically cannot leave for whatever reason. And it's not like they're stuck like financially or stuck because of family issues, like they're physically unable to cross the tracks. And so I wrote a story and then I had four kids and then I went back and read the
Oh, okay.
story and I was like, this is the terribly, terribly written book and I hadn't finished it. And so I kind of scrapped the whole thing. And then eventually I just rewrote it. And I wrote it really fast. I wrote it in like 3 months. And then spent, a year editing and trying to get an agent and like all the horrible parts of it. But it was just
Okay.
something that I really fell in love with it. And I fell in love with the characters. And it just became like this eerie scenario of now, whenever we go back, which is usually in the summertime, like you feel like you're stepping into it a little bit. Which again, it's very strange because it's something that I wrote. it's happening outside me. It's all in my own head.
Right.
But it feels like it's kind of taken on a life of its own where it's not mine anymore. Like it now exists in the world and I'm just kind of an observer at this point. So and it's built on a lot of family lore. It's obviously fiction. People have landed in my DMs like wondering if it's about me and am I okay? And I'm like, guys, it's fiction.
Oh
It's
yeah.
okay. It's not me. It's not me. It's not remotely me. But when you go back at the end and you reread it, you start to realize there are pieces of you in the story and things are built on your
Yeah.
experiences. But the overall massive traumatic things from the story did not happen to me. But there are stories that I've heard about relatives and family friends and
Yeah.
things that I remember that I kind of pieced together to create this timeline.
Well, it's kind of, I mean, it's a sign of a good writing that people think it's real, you know? I mean, because it is very
Yeah.
realistic. I mean, and it kind of reminds me of, on Halloween, I read a couple of my original short
Uh-huh.
stories on a live video, and it got a lot more views than anything I've done on
Sure.
Substack so far. And some of the comments were like, because it was about somebody jumping into a river and they ended up drowning and stuff, you
Mhm.
know. And I felt like it was my fault in the story. And they were telling me, "Oh, you don't feel bad, don't feel all this stuff."
Oh,
I'm like, it's fiction. I'm
I
like,
know you kind of feel like you're disappointing people, and you're like,
I know, I know. I'm like, I'm sorry, but
yeah,
thank you,
yeah.
but it's not real.
Well, I think it's yeah. Well, I would say it's probably confusing too because now of the people that do know me on Substack, they know me for writing nonfiction articles, right? I don't write a
Right.
lot of fiction on
Well,
here, so
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
they sort of find out after the fact that that's how I got here was from writing fiction. I didn't intend to be writing articles. I really love that I'm writing articles. This is a wild new world for me. But that's not how I got here. And so
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, am I disappointing them by telling them that there is fiction involved? But I don't think so. I
Yeah.
think it's worked out.
Yeah. Yeah, I've thought about writing some of mine on here too, but
Hmm.
I don't. That's a whole another thing. I don't
You'll
know.
get there. You'll get there. It's
Yeah.
important. It'll happen.
So, so you said you talked about agents. So
Hmm.
have you tried to publish it
I
through
Yes.
traditional publishing?
Yes. And I still intend to. And I know there's negatives with that. I have a lot of people, really good people that I know who've done self-publishing and have done it really well. They've gotten quite successful. I think it's just that there were moments where I got really close, and so I kind of like tasted it, and I still want it.
Oh
But then
yeah.
I know that it's kind of like anything in media. You're then dealing with the sort of corporate in the box. You're under the
Yeah.
thumb of A, B, C, and D. But I did get an agent for about a year. And she was really great. She was very encouraging. She had a great experience. She used to work with the big five publishers in their acquisitions. So those are the people who pull in the books and know what sells and
Right.
what they want. So she had really good
Yeah.
perspective. And when she got my book, she was very excited about it because she knew it was a little bit on like a film path potentially. Like which is when I was writing it, I'm a very visual and imaginative person. I know there's kind of a spectrum with that. I'm like way on one end. Like I get lost in scenarios all the time. And so this book to me is a film that was playing in my head as I wrote it. And so I always have intended it if something were to ever happen to it to go the route of film. And she was someone who was like, that's what I want for it too. That's what I'm seeing. That's why I picked
Right.
your book. That's why I love it. And then there was at one point, people were excited about it. At one point we had something called an R&R, which is a revise and resubmit request from Simon and Schuster, which was a big day. That was a great day. But then they ultimately rejected it. But that just kind of like there was just little pieces along the way was like, oh, maybe I can do this. Maybe I'm not just in a big pile full of people who are all doing the same thing. But then it just kind of died off, and we had really just reached out to everyone, and nobody picked it up. And it had much to do with the thematic points of view of the story and dealing with the kind of Me Too and you
Oh
know
yeah.
rebuilding your life after assault and those really hard topics. And it wasn't. I mean, which is a difficult conversation because on the one hand, those things are not fixed. And I feel that we still need to talk about them until we can openly say that these things exist and here's the plan on how they can stop existing. But right now it's more that they said they were fatigued talking about it. They didn't want
Yeah.
books about that. They
Yeah.
People don't want to read that. It's too hard on them, so we don't want to publish them. And then they keep kind of publishing these same real easy, easy subject matter, lots of fantasy, which is fine. Fantasy is fine, but like, they still are publishing new books about teenage vampires and like
Yeah.
things that have been done and done and done. And I just really was like, I don't want to change the thing that I wrote about to fit inside that very small box
Yeah.
because I think
Right.
I think what I'm writing about is really important and I think it needs to be talked about and I don't think people are tired about it who have experienced it. Um and so that's kind of where we landed after a while was just that, you know, it was uncomfortable for publishers to talk about that and they wanted easier subject matter. And so, that I think has probably changed a little bit. I don't know which way it's changed because things have gotten with the new administration, things have gotten to where
Yeah.
we want to go more trad wife, which is really what the story is about and how much that harms people. But
Yeah.
then I think the other side of, the spectrum, people want to fight harder against that. So people are more willing to read things that really blow that out of the water, I guess.
Yeah. Well, I can relate to a lot of what you're saying about because I've written a couple books and I kept submitting them to traditional publishers and they kept
Hmm.
getting rejected and everything.
Yeah.
I didn't have money for an agent, but
Right.
I just got so tired of well, back when I started doing it, it was
Hmm.
they wanted physical copies. You needed to,
Right. Yeah. Which there's
send it.
fewer submissions though, so it's like less of a
Yeah.
pool.
Yeah.
Right.
But
But an
it's
agent, if they're worth their salt, they shouldn't charge you anything. Like an agent should never charge you any money, because they should make money if you sell a book, and that's where they
right.
kind of get it. So they should never like if you have anybody up front who's like, "You want me to be your agent? I will charge you."
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they should never do that. That's usually a sign of you know, a scam agency.
Well, the first one, when I first started, I didn't even look
Mhm.
for an agent. I just
Right.
submitted to different publishers. I
Okay.
took
Okay.
there was I can't remember the name of it, but there's like a manual or something that
Hmm.
had all the publishers and
Oh,
their
that sounds fun.
requirements and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And I'm sure it's obsolete now because everything's
Right.
on the internet. But
Right.
maybe they have a website.
Well, and I
But
bet you publishers took open, like now it's very rare for a publisher to take an open submission without an agent.
right, right, yeah,
99.9% of publishers will not take anything unless it's through your agent submitting. Now there are smaller publishers that will, but some places like Penguin Random House will have like 2 days a year where they'll open up to open
oh
submissions.
yeah,
And they'll just have this like quiet and they won't say anything about it and they'll be just like open it up. So if you can find those are really gold. But yeah, it's really, really hard. And finding an agent is just, it feels impossible because most of them don't read your book before they judge
yeah,
whether they like it or not. They don't even look at it. They just look at your cover letter and they're like, I don't know, maybe.
yeah, yeah. And
So
that's one thing. Like all every publisher has different requirements. Some of them want just a query letter. Some of them want the first three chapters. Some
yep,
of them want the whole thing.
yes,
It's you have to be very
yes,
specific about when you submit to
right,
a publisher.
yes, because you don't want to submit the wrong thing because then they know you didn't
Yeah,
take the time to read their little
right. They'll
spiel.
immediately reject it.
Immediately reject it. So they
Yeah,
make them they vary them on purpose. So they yeah, I had a folder on my computer where I had like a 3 chapter sample, a 1 chapter sample, a blurb, a
yes,
synopsis.
yes. I had the same thing.
You have just like all
Yeah,
these different versions, and then eventually you can start to pick and choose from your folder. But and then you find that
yeah.
one who's just like, nope, I want something different, and then that's the
Right,
whole evening
right.
lost to making whatever that is.
Yes. Kind of reminds me of applying for jobs too, because
Or
every
college.
employer wants
Yeah.
something different. It's like
Yes.
you fill out this, you've got your resume, and yet they
Mhm.
want you to fill out this application that has the same information that's on your resume or whatever, or
Right.
they want
Right.
something just slightly different.
Yes.
But
They want to see if you give up easily.
yeah, I think that's part of it. Yeah,
Yeah.
weed out the lazier people, I guess,
Mm.
or the people who aren't quite as committed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I eventually self-published one of them
Oh,
on
good.
Amazon. But um, have you ever thought about self-publishing at all? Or are
I
you still
so
trying to go with the
Yeah, I'm
traditional?
still trying to go. So what I did is I first thought it was going to be really devastating to lose my agent. We talked about it for a while. Like I really love her. She's really great. And we kind of came to the decision together because she said that she felt like it was probably her that was holding me back because she was in New Zealand, even though she'd worked for all these major publishers. She wasn't in the US. And she said, I think
Right.
that's hurting your chances for whatever reason. Um,
Oh, okay.
and so, she's a really great agent. She has a ton of, published books, and all her writers are doing really well, but they're all probably closer to where she lives.
Right. Yeah.
So we sort of decided it together, and I thought it was going to be really devastating. And I think that it wasn't, and that surprised me. It was a little bit of a relief when I let go of her, and I was back in control of what happened to my writing. And then it was around that time that my really, really good friend in Montana was like, why don't you try Substack? Just take a break and just go have some fun and, write what you want for a little bit and just kind of hone your writing skills and, write about whatever. And so I did. I came to Substack with just kind of like for a break and to write. I really like writing essays. And so it was, I started right before the election, and then I started writing a little bit more politically around that time because I was like taking my kids to the Women's March and really trying to teach them on their level about like what was happening in the US and why it matters, and where we stand as a family, and just sort of like found setting the foundation for them to go off in the world and kind of decide what they want politically. So I was doing a lot of that and kind of translating that into my writing. And then I just happened last summer. I posted a short story that was I really loved. I posted a short story about a friend of mine that went missing, who was like kind of part of the Seattle punk rock scene in my 20s, and just like that wild life and what that entailed. And I really liked that, and that did pretty well. And then after that, I think it was in July, I want to say, people were talking about Jeffrey Epstein. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I'd kind of heard, I kind of knew the story, like everybody sort of knows the story. And I think I just wanted to figure out how he and Donald Trump were connected, like legitimately on the record with documents. Like, where were they when they were there at the same time and they were hanging out? Where was there a party? Where was there, you know, something that I had concrete evidence that they were spending time? And so I made a timeline of just all their interactions over several years. There were quotes, and there was like photographs, and there were articles, and but it was all the things that they had ever done in a timeline from beginning to end. And it was significant, and I didn't realize that it was so significant. And so I just posted it. I was just like, wow, this is pretty cool. And that was the thing that just set it off. Like, it was just thousands and thousands of response, and I didn't have 1,000 subscribers. Like,
Yeah.
thousands of people like responded to this article, and I was like, what is going on? And so I kind of just paid attention to that, and I thought, because I don't generally like to write about the things that are breaking news, or, the most popular thing that everybody's writing about, because I don't feel that it's necessary to add my voice to something that has so
Right.
many voices
Yeah.
already talking about. Like, it just adds to the pile. Um and so I was like, I want to just start looking into the story and figuring out what I mean, there's so many different ways you can go with it, and just start writing about the stuff that people aren't writing about. So I wrote kind of about his like history in academia, and some of the money stuff, and all the things that weren't the things that people were talking about. And then every time they would drop some files, just a couple of files out of the House Oversight Committee, I would like just really dig into them and look for clues, and just started writing about really tiny things that were very important. And it became very investigative. And I thought after a while, I'm like, I hope I'm not identifying myself as a writer just from this story, because it's kind of like being
Yeah.
typecast, or
Yes.
and
Yes.
inwardly I'm not. Like, inwardly, when this story is done, I am done. Like, I
Yeah.
I do not need the Epstein story to keep my writing going. There will be other things, and I will have my own writing, and that's more important to me, and I will not lose sleep when this thing is done. But for now, it is very interesting because it's like a really big puzzle. Like, I'm just finding these little
Yeah.
pieces
Yeah.
and fitting them together, and trying to see where people have missed things. And like a lot of these files that I've been digging through lately, I don't think a lot of people have actually read them. I think people do AI searches and they do these kind of
Oh yeah,
databases where they compile the information, but they're doing it all in one lump sum with AI, but nobody actually is opening them up and reading through everything. And so I was like, well, I'm going to do that. And so I found a lot of stuff that people haven't found yet because they're searching for names, but you can't search for something if you don't know if it's in there. And so I've just spent like a couple hours every night just looking at them one at a time, one page at a time, and a lot of it is you can skip over because they photocopied a bunch of books and documents that are duplicated, and there's a lot of very interesting stuff in there that people are missing that links back
right.
to like things people have said, testimony, significant names. And so I'm trying to just do a lot of digging, and that's sometimes I'm very quiet because I'm just at home researching and drinking my coffee and but I'm
Yeah.
always doing something.
Most people aren't going to take all that time to go deep
Yeah.
and just to look page by
Yeah.
page at all of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I should have been like a math major or something. I'm very spatsy. Like I really like to an extent I really love it. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I can be kind of analytical too. I,
Yes.
I don't I don't know if I would go as far as what you're doing. but but I do I like psychoanalysis and stuff like
hmm
that. But yeah, one of the reasons I reached out to you is I because I really liked your story, what I had read of it, and I thought a lot of people in the that write or talk about politics and stuff that can really weigh them down and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I would guess that you would probably want to break from that every once in a while,
Yeah. I
and write and talk about
yeah.
something that it's clearly something that you're passionate about.
Yeah. I'm very good at compartmentalizing.
Yeah, well,
I,
that's good.
yeah, and partially that's probably how I'm made, and partially that's just over time and experience. Like, I'm really good at shutting things off, turning my phone off, losing it somewhere in the house, and like going off. Like, I will go take my kids to New York and I leave my phone at home accidentally. Like, I'll just like, I'm really good at just getting out and getting away. But also, before this, I've had a small business. Sorry, my phone keeps tilting upwards and I disappear. Who knows if that will stop doing that. I've worked as a small business owner and I transcribe these interviews for court cases. And so a lot of them are similar. I mean, nothing's as big as this one, but like a lot of them are very similar. I worked on like the Woody Allen and Mia Farrow stuff, and I worked on like the Weinstein stuff, and like it's all kind of in the same vein. I worked on a lot of smaller,
Yeah,
no name cases, and um, you know, kids who've been abused and women who've been abused and things like that. And at first it was difficult. When I first started doing that, I was like, is this something that I want to do every night? Am I gonna have weird dreams? Um, does it change how I think about things? Did it change my like inner monologue? And I think I just had to get to a place where I realized that even if I'm just like a tiny cog in the machine, I'm doing something that's helping the people who are involved in this story, like, or the people from now on moving forward who could be involved in a story like this. I'm helping somebody somewhere so this doesn't happen again, or so they're more
right,
protected, or so there's a consequence for the person who hurt them. And if I don't do it, somebody else has to do that. And so
right,
I can justify it because even if it's really, really tiny, it's helping in some itty bitty way. Like it's getting a message out in some itty bitty way. And so now when I'm reading these things, I mean, the worst of the worst that I read was Virginia's book. Like that's pretty illicit as far as like the bad things that happened with Jeffrey Epstein. Um, but I mean, like I know that it's triggering for a lot of people. I know that a lot of people can't look at the pictures, they can't read the articles.
right,
I'm very, very, very fortunate that I'm not somebody who was sexually abused as a child, right? I know that is extremely prominent. I know the statistics. And so I am somebody who can read that and not be triggered by it. because I also have kids and I don't want these things to happen to them.
Yeah.
I want to be able to be proactive about these things. And I also want to be able to write and understand the information and regurgitate it in a way that people who would be triggered by it can still understand, but can skip those steps. Like they don't need to dive into
Yeah.
those files. I can do it for
Right.
them, and then I can give them the pieces that they need so that they don't have to do that. And that's kind of how I've come to Substack anyway. I did that with like Project 2025, and I did that with the Big Beautiful Bill. Like I know that a lot of people can't dig into that stuff, and so I will do it and I will simplify it and I'll give it back so they can understand it. And that's worked its way forward, I guess.
Yeah, I can relate to that because I'm one of those people that I can't write a whole lot about some of those issues. Like, I mean, I've had depression
Yeah.
and stuff, and I've written a few serious pieces on my Substack, about
Hmm.
my boyfriend passing away and
Yeah.
things like that. But I can't write a whole lot about that. I need
Yeah.
to limit that, and that's why I write a lot of just satire and humor and stuff.
Sure.
But
Yeah. And part of writing is it's not all unselfish. Not everything we write is for other people to read. Like some of it is for us and it's catharsis
yeah,
and it's us going through something and this is how we deal with it. And yeah, writers are fairly emotional people and we express that in what we say.
so I can imagine like your what you're describing with the writing with the Epstein's and
Hmm.
all that stuff. I would I would guess that that's kind of similar to writing your book because you touch on
Hmm.
some kind of pretty
Right.
hard.
Yeah. Which is
I mean,
it's
some of it's hard to read.
it is extremely hard to read. And it's, to me in my head, it's very ironic because I didn't know, I don't think I knew about the Epstein story when I was writing this stuff. I mean,
Oh yeah,
I'd worked on other stories that had been pretty hard and I'd listened to other people's stories. But I recognize that in what I'm writing, and ultimately it's a story of rebirth and like rewriting your narrative and like taking your power back. So it's a good reason after the fact to talk about those things. But yeah, it's very triggering. That was one of the hard things with finding an agent is such a high percentage of agents are women, and women have such a high rate of sexual abuse.
oh
And so
yeah,
there was a lot of agents who just couldn't read it. They were just like,
yeah,
we really like the story, we like the idea, but I personally am not able to read those chapters. So I can't, accept your book if I can't read those chapters. Um,
right.
and so on Substack, I really made sure when I have a really triggering chapter to make a gentle version for people who can still read
Yeah,
it.
I've seen a few of those.
Yeah, yeah. So they can still read it. They don't miss any of it, but it doesn't delve into the parts that are really hard. And so I do that because I want everybody to be able to read it but not be triggered and hurt by it.
Yeah,
And also to know that those pieces of the story are temporary and lead into something really, really beautiful. And not
yeah,
as a result, because I don't want to say that like the person harming someone turned into something good. Like she turns it into good for herself. But it ultimately is a story for good. It's a beautiful renewal story. So yeah.
yeah, and it's also again back to how well it's written. You when you're reading it because it's hard to read,
Mhm.
you think that it's actually happened to someone in real life
Right.
almost, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and you kinda get lost in the story because it is so realistic and I mean, even if you like when I'm reading something and if it's really hard to read or whatever, I'll think, "Okay, this is fiction. This is not
Mhm.
true. These
Right.
aren't real people."
It's kind of like a scary
But the on
movie,
the
right?
other well, that's
Yeah.
true. If you get really triggered by some of those,
Mm,
but then you also, on the other side of that, you have to think, "But it did happen, probably
yeah.
to someone."
Every day. Every day,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
The scenario exists, not with
yeah,
these people, but with people who are exactly like them, right? There are
right,
people who are
right,
isolated and living in poverty and have addiction issues and
yeah,
have violence issues. Yeah, this stuff exists everywhere, and I'm just portraying it with characters, but it's still
yeah.
a nonfiction scenario. So yeah, for sure. That's, uh, I wish that I couldn't write that because it didn't exist. That I
Right.
wouldn't even be able to think of it because it was so unthinkable. But
Right.
it's still every day. I mean, just the idea that it was being turned down because they were tired of talking about it, and yet here we are talking about the Epstein files every day. It's the same stuff, I mean, it's different people, but it's the same stuff. And the reason why people are talking about it is because of how bad and how prevalent it was and still is. The stuff still exists. I posted something on Substack today where I forget what I had posted originally, but it was just talking about, some of these things that had happened to, I think it was like some of the pictures from Epstein's Island, but a guy hopped on there and just said, like, anybody who says that they don't look at little girls is lying, or something like that, like some really gross comment. And so I like screenshot it, and then I looked at his profile, and he said that he was like a model agent, and I was like, so we're just doing this again. So it's just the same thing. And I blocked him, but then I like told everybody to look out for him because it's
Yeah.
a guy who's open to pedophilia, doesn't think
Yeah.
it's a bad thing, and he's acting as a modeling scout, at least on
Yeah.
his social media, which is the whole premise of this story, right? So it's like
Yeah.
the reason why it matters is because these people were wealthy and well known, but the actual scenario of something like that is it's happening every day, especially in these areas where people live in poverty. They're very, very easily trafficked. I remember when I was a kid, I mean, it wasn't necessarily trafficking, but there was there was a place called Barbizon in Seattle. It was like a modeling agency, and they were always trying to get girls, like sixth, seventh grade girls. And you'd go in there, and there would be older, like I went in there once, and there was a guy who was a Calvin Klein, like a model. He was a former Calvin Klein model. And he sat right down with me. He's like, "Hey, how are you?" And I remember my mom was like, "We're gonna go," because she's with me. But it's like these. There's nothing not scummy about modeling in children. There just isn't. Or
Yeah.
like, childhood actors. There's really no way to swing it where it's safe and healthy for kids. It just doesn't exist, even now. Worse then, but even now. So it's like I think the story matters, both my book and like why everybody's interested in the Epstein story is because potentially if we see an actual physical consequence for this thing, if people really, really go to jail, with
Yeah.
significant sentences, then that actually shows what can happen to you if you do these things and potentially can at least slow down that trafficking network. And especially in the wealthy, upper echelon of society, I would hope.
Right.
But I don't know.
I really wish the like publishing companies would not be so uh, dependent on trends. Like we were saying,
Mhm.
and I know how that works. Publishing companies are only looking for this certain type of story this year.
Safe. Yeah.
Yeah, if the zombies were very popular, and
Hmm.
so everybody wanted zombie books to
Right.
compete with what was out there, or whatever it is. But it's like,
I told my husband, I was like, if I could just go out and write The Notebook over and over and over again, people would
yeah,
continue to buy it and sell it because it's so safe and happy and, happy ending and she gets the right person, and
yeah,
that's what it is. You go to like a Barnes and Noble, and I did this one time. We went to Barnes and Noble and there was a bestsellers table, and I took a picture of it because it was all different authors and all different stories, but the covers almost looked exactly the same. It was the same
yes, yeah,
font. They were all these kind of bright pinks and blues. They sort of look like a graphic novel, but they're not. And it was like, oh, there's a one guy and one girl on every single cover. And I
yeah,
just remember
yeah.
thinking, like, don't people get bored? Like, don't they get bored? Don't they want something different? But I don't think they do. They just get really comfortable and cozy in their, niche
I'm the opposite.
story.
I want something different.
Yeah, like don't you have something a little wild and like uncomfortable and I don't know. I don't know. That's how I felt. I was just like, or at least a different cover. Like let's come up with a different font. Feels
Right,
easier.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a little trouble with that coming to Substack too. I didn't
Mhm.
want to write in a niche,
Right.
all everything in the same thing. But I mean, having paid subscribers, they subscribe for this one thing. They don't want you all over the place. So I was kind of had to narrow my focus.
Yeah.
But
Well,
I
and I
write.
think Substack
I like
does.
writing all kinds of things,
Yeah, well, and I
but
think Substack does that too to you because they have these little categories of like, are you a U.S. politics person?
yes,
Are you
yeah, yeah,
self-help? Are you culture? Are you food? So they
right,
kind of put you in that little box too. But you sort of, for me, it sort of taught me like what am I not and this isn't to be like egotistical, but like what am I good at writing? Like what areas am I good at writing? And I
yeah,
think if you'd ask anybody who knows me, I'm good at having an opinion. And so if I can write something with opinions in it, then I'll probably do that. But also like I'm a fairly political person. I've grown up being very versed in politics by my family, knowing like local
yeah,
politics, like when somebody runs for president, I don't just know what I hear on the news. Like I like go study them. I go read on, their voting history and like what policies do they want to implement and stuff like that. Because I feel like if we all did that, we'd all vote way differently than we do. If we knew what
yeah,
we were
yeah,
voting for, we would be just better citizens. Um, so it made sense that, I like writing essays. They weren't called articles when I wasn't on Substack, but like I like writing essays and I like politics. So, okay, if something's going on, I can write an essay about that and I can call that an article and I can post it. Um, and so that's just kind of where it's been because I haven't solely written about Epstein. I've written a lot, about Trump's obviously a big one.
right,
Some of the history. I wrote about Ivana and Ivanka. Oh, Ivana, I guess, the older one.
right,
And
yeah,
there's certain things that I really want to write about that Epstein's sort of on the cusp of, but it's just sort of a bigger story. Like I really would love to do a breakdown of the modeling industry and
oh
some
yeah,
of this like Einstein visa stuff that's really sketchy about how they get all the girls through with Einstein visas and so there's some sort of corruption going on a government level there, but then yeah, on all levels. So um there are things that I will inevitably write about, but it's really hard. It's almost like you're running all the time, like because like right now I'm holding down a full-time job and then I'm coming home and writing in the evenings, which thankfully I'm going to be done doing at the end or in a couple of weeks here. Um, but it's like I'm trying to get through every bit of information that I have now because I know they're about to dump more information, and I'm just like
oh
running
yeah,
to get through everything. And I just feel like I'm always trying to play catch up because it's like I don't know, I can't think of a metaphor, but I'm constantly running and they're throwing things at me and I'm like trying to like not miss them. Um and there's some stuff that I just have to be like, okay, I missed that. That's not for me to write about. I didn't
yeah,
get there in time, and that's fine. That's fine. Like when this last big dump of files came out, I was still trying to dig through. They had dropped all the JP Morgan um, they had a big lawsuit from the Virgin Islands on JP Morgan that really broke down all the like racketeering and money laundering stuff that was going on with all this Epstein stuff and all the discrepancies and corruptions that happened out of like the banking system, like the American banking system during the time when we had the recession and how it's all
yeah,
linked. And like Zev Shalev has done a really good job. Like that's his specialty. And so I'm just kind of at the fringe of like figuring some of that stuff out. But like we were sort of working in tandem where I was going through all the emails, I was going through all the documents, and then he's writing, the greatest heist and he's doing his part. But I'm just like trying to dig and research. And then they'll dump more files and you're just like, I wasn't done. So I'm trying to get through everything and make sure that it's, documented for all to read and on Substack. And that's what I'm doing now. I'm trying to do all the significant email threads that are from major players or minor players, but just ones that seem to matter to the story before they dump more files, which sounds like they're going to.
great,
And then I'll take a nap.
uh, yeah. So, with your book, you've been posting a chapter a week, right? Every
Yes.
Sunday or something like that.
Yeah, Sunday night.
So I'm up to date so far. I think I
Oh,
read chapter
nice.
11, which was the last one. But
Yeah.
so have you finished this one?
Yes. Yeah, I finished it 3 years ago. So I've actually written
Okay, okay.
a second book after this one.
Oh, okay. That was
Um,
another question I was going to ask.
yeah, I've got a few half books. I've
Yeah.
got
Oh,
I've
I've
got
got a few
like
of those too.
yeah, you
Yeah,
know what I mean?
partial ones.
I
Yeah.
have one that I was writing with my daughter that's more of a middle grade. I have one that's There was sort of an experimental book that really relied heavily on more pop culture stuff and like modern, because originally when I was writing Death of a Mayfly, I grew up reading the classics. I'm way into historical fiction, and I really debated about like time periods. When did I want this story to exist? And I
Oh, right.
really wanted like horses and carts and, you know,
Oh, yeah.
and no electricity. But when I started writing it like that, I was like, okay, this is too whimsical and Little House on the Prairie. Like that's not gonna work. And so I eventually got to a point where I didn't necessarily want to give it a specific decade. Like you can sort of, there's little clues, but I wanted people to really create it for themselves and their own experience when they wanted this story to exist. I mean, there's airplanes and there's TVs in it, but I'm like not talking about the internet all that much. There's no cell phones.
Right.
It's just kind of like life going on. So then as that one was on submission with my agent and I was so stressed out about it, I was like, I'm going to write this other book, which I really liked the book, but I'm going to write it to be super like pop culture references and like bro
Oh, yeah.
talk and like, like drug references and like all these different things and just see if writing something like that that totally plays to a modern audience and not like giving them totally what they want and sacrificing my own writing, but it was just kind of like an experimental book to see like which one would do better in the end.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Neither of them are doing anything at this point, so I don't know yet. But then this other book that I was writing with my daughter that I do really like, it's just I'm very, very conflicted about. We were writing a story. So there's at at Grand Central Station, there's a there's a section, so they have these doors in Grand Central Station with numbers over them. It's very like Harry Pottery. And
Oh,
each
yeah.
one of them, each one opens to a train that takes you to like Connecticut and Boston and all these different ones. But there's one where the number doesn't exist. It goes from like 11 to 13 and there's no 12. And I was like,
Oh,
someone needs to write a story about that.
right. Yeah.
So we have this kind of like Polar Expressy type of thing but it like takes you back into different points of history that should have been taught but that weren't. So you have like the pogroms, you have like the Native American boarding houses, you have Stonewall, you have the Tulsa race riots, you have like all these things in history that all of us should know. Like they're
Yeah.
so important and we should all know them as well as we know the things that we think we know, like pogroms or like,
Yeah. Right.
the stuff that's been whitewashed. But like I really wanted to write the story about like a scout group that's sort of from like from the projects in Queens, and they get this magnificent trip to take this train that takes them to different points in history, and it's just sort of like a magical
Okay.
thing. But
Yeah, I was wondering if that's where you were going with it. I was
yeah,
like,
yeah. So
this
they
train
get
that
like
takes you through.
they win like a sleepover in Grand Central Station, and they wake up and all of a sudden the door is there. They can do so. It's definitely a kid's book. But I was questioning if all these different scenarios and these points of history are all points of history that are not my history. And
Yeah.
if I'm someone who should be writing about somebody else's history, um, and so I thought maybe to put that one on hold to a point when I could maybe have co-writers who like
Oh,
contribute
yeah.
to those sections who do know more about that point in history, who have experienced things or whose families did come from those places and those times so that they can be a contributor to that portion so that it represents somebody who has that experience versus me writing about everybody's experience, which I don't necessarily think
Yeah.
would be that appropriate. But it's a cool idea for a story, but I would want that before I finished it completely, or at least people who are reviewing it and making sure that it accurately depicts
Right.
those points in history and the things that they went through.
Yeah, I think I would have that concern too. Well, actually, I wrote an article about um, Trans Awareness Week, and I, not being trans, I
Mhm.
was like, I don't know if I should be writing about this. So
Yeah,
I did write it. And then, but I asked Wendy the Druid and Onyx Rose, who's in the
yeah,
audience. I was like, can you read this for me and tell me if there's something,
right.
I'm missing or whatever. And they did, and they helped me out. So
That's really great.
I felt like I kind of had a stamp of approval on that one.
Right.
So,
Well, and I
but
think too,
otherwise, huh?
I think too, it's good though too in a way because I mean, you definitely want the contributors, but it's a good way to like learn. I don't know. I do have a trans family member, and for me, it's been a very long learning process. And I was always open to the learning process, and I always love and accepted them. But I always like seeking education, and it was very
Yeah.
hard to find. Right there, it's still not
Yeah.
as prevalent as I would like. But then some parts of it, that's on me. It's not on like a community to create this educational system for me. And so I've like one of the things that I've been, lucky enough to work on is my hometown has a trans convention, and they've had it since 1990, and it's fantastic, and it's an anomaly. It's in a logging town, that's it's like
Oh.
half Trump voters, half Kamala voters. But it's a very rednecky kind of small town, and yet they've had this convention long before trans was political. And so nobody's ever had a problem with it. They always look forward to it. Like the entire town, a
Huh.
bunch of like churches and like, you know, loggers like really look forward to these people coming to their town every summer. And so I've worked in films for a long time with my other job, and I contacted one of the filmmakers and I said, you like kind of quirky small town stories. I was like, what do you think of this? What do you think of this convention that's in my hometown? It's it's such a little snippet of society to see this happening when we could do this all over the US. Like everybody's capable of doing this. Um, and I said, "What do you think about that?" And they were like, "We need to make a movie about that right now." And so they've been filming there, and I've gotten to be a part of that, which has been such a fantastic experience, just immersing myself in somebody else's world and observationally, but also being included in it. Like getting to join them in their activities and their classes, and they have classes like a lot of them are married and have spouses, and there's the journey of the spouse going through the journey with their spouse, and just being able to really just observe and learn. I think that I can love and support my family member better now than I used to, even though I thought I
Yeah.
was. Now I can
Yeah.
do it better, and it's always learning. I'm going to continue on that process for the rest of my life, but that's just something that I've just been so excited about, and I hope I can show everybody at some point. And we have to get funding first, but but it's in the
Yeah.
works.
So as far as like researching and stuff, do you feel like you had to do any of that for Death of a Mayfly, or is that like more your experiences and drawing from your own hometown and family members and things?
Death of a Mayfly was just like an explosion of story out of my head. I'm not really good at outlining anyway. I don't know if you know the phrases, but there's the plotter and the pantser for writing, and the plotters are the people who write the real outlines of every chapter, and they
Oh
know the
yeah.
whole.
Yeah.
And the pantsters are just like, I'm gonna write tonight. Let's see what
Yeah.
my characters do. That's what I do. Which I know the editors totally know who's a pantser and who's a plotter when they read your writing. And so I do a lot of editing down afterwards. But this story, it was just me just waiting for my kids to go to bed at night, and I would just sit down and just dump, just and be like, oh my gosh, it's 2 a.m. I should probably sleep now, and just you know, my fingers are cramping. It was just a lot of that, and I think maybe I was in a place in my life where maybe I needed to do that. Like maybe I was going through something, on another level that I didn't know about. And that was my way of expressing that. But it just came out, and there was no, I was like, I was out of control. I had to
Okay.
write, and it just kind of came out. The second one was much more like I thought about it. I didn't want to wander. I wanted to, know what I was going to do. But the first one was just like, ugh, get it out.
So can you tell us how much is there left of this book? We're on chapter 11 now. Are you gonna
Yes.
tell us how much is left, or
You've
is
got some
it?
time. So you've basically just entered the story. So for those who are on chapter 11, we have just met the second protagonist. And it's
Okay.
and it's their story that is the story of the book. It's her
Oh.
home, yes, her home life, and the trauma that she goes through with her father and the man she ultimately marries. is the background for this beautiful story of like change and something that happens in non-linear time. Like there's we're not on a normal timeline anymore. We're somewhere over here. And so this is the story that she will be seeking the entire rest of the book. She doesn't always get it. Sometimes she gets it, sometimes she doesn't. But that is the true core of the novel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah. 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 There's a
Yeah.
twist of that plays back into the title that will come up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They're the
Well,
theme, those
that's
little
really
bugs.
interesting. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, I related to parts of this, growing up in the church. I mean, my dad wasn't a pastor, but I did grow up. We went to a Southern Baptist church for a
Yeah.
while and that kind of thing. I recognized that type of preacher,
Yes. Yes. Me
and
too.
and playing the piano and stuff. And you said I wrote a comment in one of them. I said I could relate to some of it because I played
Yeah.
piano, and I
Yeah.
think you said I played since I could walk. I think or
Yeah.
something like. Yeah.
Yes.
So
I've yeah.
so did you play for church? I mean, was your family involved in church? Do you play for church?
Yeah. So my family's sort of interesting. My mom came to Christianity later in life, but she always had us go to church from birth because she's called it an insurance, backup plan
Oh,
just in case.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
My
yeah.
my dad is an atheist biology teacher, but
Oh,
he would
okay.
go to church if they had a sports team because he really likes to play baseball. So she got him at a church where they had like a softball team, and then he would go. And so
Oh, that's
now
funny.
she's very much on like the zealot path, which is a little tough, because again, I have a trans family member um,
Yeah,
and politically it's been a little bit rough and there's always this kind of mentality of she's trying to fix everybody around her instead of just be with them. And that can be really, really hard for everybody in the room. Um, and so for me, I did grow up in the church, but I was probably more into it than my mom for a long time, but it was very social for me. It was like youth group and,
oh, right.
ski
Yeah,
trips and whatever, wherever we went for New Year's. And it was like the big Wednesday night, all the kids from school would go to youth group. So it's like very fun for me. But I didn't grow up in a church that was like I knew the Southern Baptist Church. I'd attended, but I didn't grow up. I grew up in a very like not new age, but like evangelical, like guitars and all that kind of stuff.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Not I wouldn't say liberal, but like modern. If you
yeah,
fewer hymns, more of like the modern
yeah,
Christian
yeah.
rock, whatever. Um,
Right.
but I did play piano from like I wanted to play piano when I was very little, and I used to play all the time at my mom's friend's house. And they finally like, you need to get her a piano, so I got my grandma's old piano, and I started in the first grade, and I played all the way. I had lessons all the way up until college. But like whenever I would go back to Fort Benton every summer, my grandma would make me play at the church every summer, and I hated it. Hated
Yeah.
playing at her church because she did. She had a little tiny brick red church. Um, and I just hated playing in front of everybody in her church and then my cousins would all be there and they'd tell me when I made mistakes and I'd have to hear about that too. But
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what cousins are for, I guess,
yeah, yeah.
really, aren't they?
So, but I mean, like, so there's a few themes in the book, but one of them is this classical music theme, and you'll see it kind of
Yeah, yeah,
interwoven into the chapters. And some of it will make sense to people, and there's people who never played an instrument in their life, and it won't make sense. But I hope that it's written in a way that still the prose is good and understandable for them. But
yeah.
it as I was writing, I literally have a playlist on my phone that goes
Oh,
along
yeah.
with the chapters. And I thought about, I was like,
Oh, that's
how
cool.
could I include that in like Substack? I don't really know, um but there's music that really accompanies the story. That I hope if it was ever a film that would be incorporated in the film. But yeah, that definitely is like a huge, because for me, when you go through hard times in your life, if you are a musician on any level, that can be extremely healing.
Yeah,
And
right.
so I just used that. That was definitely part of the story.
Well, if you did your own voiceovers, you could have that playlist
Yeah, I
playing in the
could.
background while you're reading it.
This is true.
But well, we're at an hour. I don't want to keep you too long.
Okay.
I mean, we didn't talk about how long you wanted to do this or
I know,
anything, but I
whatever.
don't want to. Yeah, I don't want to take up all your time. I know you've got so many other things going on, but
I'm gonna make
I
sure my
I
kids go to
really.
sleep.
Oh well, that's good.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
I'm doing this live thing every day this month just to try to,
Nice.
end the year on a good note, try to get more
Yeah.
subscribers
Yeah,
going
go do
into
it. Go
next
subscribe,
year.
guys. Subscribe to
Yeah.
Brandon.
And if you're
His
not
beautiful
subscribed
creation.
to Ellie, please do that too. I'm
Thank you.
putting her Substack in the chat if you want to copy and
Thank you.
paste that in your browser.
Yep.
So
We'll keep
thank you
writing.
so
Yeah.
much, Ellie. I really enjoyed this. I
Thank
I
you.
enjoyed
I did
talking
too.
about your book and everything. That was
I like talking
nice.
about writing sometimes. It's just fun to step away and talk about the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get tired. Sometimes I get tired of all
Yeah.
the serious.
Yeah.
I need a break from that sometimes. So,
Yes. Yes. Agreed.
but
Well,
well,
okay.
I hope you
Thank
have a
you, everybody.
nice evening. Have a
Thank
nice
you.
weekend and Christmas
I
and
will.
everything.
Everything.
But
All right. Have a good night,
all
guys.
right, all right.
Bye.
Thanks. See y'all later.